I wanted to move on to Evander Kane. We all know about the San Jose Sharks forward suspended for 21 games for being caught with a fake vaccination card. It's nothing short of disappointing for me as someone who thought he had turned the corner around the time of the Hockey Diversity Alliance. I remember writing about him for Yahoo Sports, and since then, it's just been let down after disappointment with this guy. And if I was a player in his locker room, I don't even know if I want to play with him again. And I feel he's burned so many bridges. But one thing that actually, you know what, before I ask that question about what the Sharks could even do with his contract, what were your thoughts on the fact that Evander Kane put himself in this position and got himself suspended as long as he did?
Well, I think we should remember, first and foremost, we're dealing with a human being. Yeah. And humans are imperfect and make mistakes. And I know Evander's made a few that we know about over time, but he's not alone in that. And so I'm still sympathetic because it's clear his life has got to a point. There's no way, I haven't talked to him, but there's no way he's happy where he's at. He's acknowledged that he's in therapy or receiving some counseling. He's filed for divorce. He's been accused of betting on his own games. He's involved in a lawsuit with a casino in Vegas for not paying his debts. There's now this vaccination card issue that's going to cost him another $1.5 million, but obviously he's got some financial issues going. Like, there's a lot going on in his life way outside of hockey. And so, I hope for him, his sake, and for, his kid's sake, he's got a young daughter, that he can get all that under control. Because there's no question when he plays, he can play. Like, he had almost a point a game last year for the Sharks. And so, it's hard to separate sort of we're talking primarily on this podcast about people as, what they do on the ice, what the Sharks can do with his contract. What does this mean for the team? But, I think my first thoughts really are just the individual and you hope he can find whatever peace he needs or whatever help he needs to get his life on the right track. Cause I do think that's probably most important here.
That's fair. It's just that with a guy like Evander Kane, like, this isn't a guy who just started his career and then this happened and now he's battling for a second chance. Some of those mistakes that he's made throughout his career, we're talking about a career that has spanned through Atlanta, Winnipeg, and Buffalo. And I don't think I'm missing any other cities. Like, no. Enough general managers have seen him play enough. He's played with enough players in the National Hockey League, and he's built a reputation for himself as a guy who might not necessarily be the best teammate. So I don't know if he's run enough track at this point with his latest transgression. So I have to question that as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. Look, I'm not saying ignore everything he's done and everything's rosy and, but I can still be sympathetic that, no one, if you step back and look at it, no one would have want their life to end up where his life has ended up and that's just what we know publicly, of course, or what's been alleged. It's clear. I think it's clear if we're going to talk about his future as an NHL player, like, that's somewhat in question. He's still got 3 years on his contract after this one, but I'm not convinced that San Jose wants him back at this point. Now, there's not many levers they can pull here. There's not all that much they can do. There is a scenario where, once he's cleared his suspension at the end of November, they have to, give him a spot to play. But one question I do wonder, and I don't know the answer to, is, has he been vaccinated? I mean, we know he produced a fake vaccination card. Has he actually been vaccinated? That will be important, I would suggest, in terms of if he can come back and join the team then. I don't think he's tradable at this point in time. He has, it's kind of actually an unusual no trade clause in that he can name the 3 teams he can be traded to, which is very restrictive, of course, for San Jose, because the 3 teams he names maybe have no interest in trading for him. But I don't know if anyone would at $7 million cap hit and based on some of the things that are going on here. And so, man, like, he's got work to do with whatever organization he might end up in, if it's not San Jose, to win back the trust of, I think, the league, whatever players he's playing with. He's got to show improvement or, he's on the way out of this league really quickly.
So why can't the Sharks just terminate his contract? Why can't they just, like, we don't want you here, get out of here, we're tearing this contract up?
Well, the simple answer is the rules don't allow it, right? There's a CBA that governs basically how everyone has to operate, how business operates under the NHL umbrella. The players and owners have agreed to it. And under that CBA, it's contemplated, off ice issues, off ice discipline. And, it's section 18 of the CBA. And that's what Evander was disciplined under. But, 21 games is not a small suspension, Julian. We're talking a quarter of the season. We're talking $1.5 million. That's punitive in itself. And basically the Sharks aren't allowed to punish him beyond that fact. Now, had some of the other things that were alleged against him, say if he was found to be gambling on the sport, which his estranged wife had alleged, had that been, substantiated or proven to be true, then I think they would have had a case potentially to void his contract, but they don't have that right now. And, what'll be interesting to me is you have a contract. So that's the amount of money you have to be paid under the rules. I wonder if the Sharks just think, hey, we don't want you back. We'll pay you to stay at home and then we'll buy you out in the summer. That could be an option that's available to them. And, if he does that, Evander will get, a chunk of the money that he's owed, but, he loses his playing opportunity for the season. And again, it puts his career in jeopardy. I don't think it's a stretch or too alarmist to say his career is in some degree of jeopardy here just because of, we don't know when he'll play his next game. We don't know what team might want to sign him to do that. We don't know. I guess I don't know the Sharks don't want him back, but it doesn't seem that way from where I sit. I saw the comments from Logan Couture, Marc-Edouard Vlasic, Kevin Kurz of The Athletic out of San Jose, wrote a story in August about how, at that point, we didn't even know all the stuff that's happened since, but that the teammates had grown tired of him. And so, this is a player who's kind of dangling by thread, I think, in some ways, Julian, with his career. And, the Sharks can't terminate his contract and he's going to get paid some amount of what he has left on that contract, but it doesn't guarantee he's going to play anywhere under that contract. And that's probably what's most important to him at this point in time.
Absolutely. I'll say this, even if it was against the Montreal Canadiens, the San Jose Sharks, their first game post announcement of suspension, they look like a weight had been lifted off of them. And if the Sharks end up going on some decent run over the next course of these 21 games, I don't know if you want to put Evander Kane back in that lineup.
Right. Well, look, it's the first season without Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau in 102 years, with respect to those guys. They're my age. But it's a new beginning there, right? They still have some of their older established players, the Brent Burns, the Vlasics, the Coutures, those guys have been there a long time. But if you look at the last few years, their leadership group has lost Pavelski. It's lost Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau retired. They're turning over a new leaf. They have 5 rookies in their lineup right now. And, I think that if you're running that team, you're comfortable not even challenging for a playoff spot this year. I think ultimately, they've got off to a decent start here. We'll see what they can do. Sometimes you turn the keys over to the kids and they can drive the car, but it's not a guarantee here. But I do think that this season there is about renewing. It's about moving forward. And that's why I sort of feel like you might not want to reintroduce that element into the dressing room, especially if there's some, if there's some animosity built up with Evander and some of his teammates. I think he might have run out of runway there. The Sharks, to be fair, they stood by him through a lot. They stood by him through the gambling issue in Vegas and the lawsuit that came out of that. They stood by him when he declared bankruptcy. This wouldn't be a case where the first thing goes wrong, they toss a guy overboard. I think that they've been pretty loyal to this player, but I do also think it's possible he's just burned through any goodwill that they have for him. And it might be time for a separation. It's just, I'm not sure how you separate under these circumstances.